Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Booking.com's Pepijn Rijvers in discussion with Skift's Dennis Shaw.
Hey, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. A reminder about Slido. Get your questions into slido.com or the Skift Forum app and vote up or down the questions in there so we can see which ones you want to ask. So our topic is the battle to own the customer. And it seems to me like Booking.com is doing this on a variety of fronts these days.
Yes.
You're getting into tours and activities. You're tilting towards becoming more of a full-service online travel agency, whereas in the past, you focused on accommodations.
Yes.
You're doing more brand advertising. So I feel like I'm sort of with the Wizard of Oz here today, the guy who pulls the strings, because when Pepijn makes a marketing decision, markets tumble, stocks dive. So it's my long-winded way of saying, what's going on with Trivago? So yesterday, Trivago announced that one of its largest customers, and Booking.com was responsible for 38% of its revenue in the first quarter,
Yes.
has decided to seek efficiencies and to get more profitable. And Trivago's stock dipped 26% yesterday, and now is going for less than $5 a share. So what's going on with Trivago and Metasearch?
Yes. So I'd hate to go into the history books as the guy who kind of brought down companies, but so I don't think that's relevant. But certainly, being one of the largest travel advertisers globally, we have a big impact on how we shape the market. And I think that also comes with the responsibility, of course, to always optimize the marketing mix. And marketing mix can be optimized either on the profit side or on the growth side. If you look at Booking.com's strategy, then we're very much a growth business, and therefore I will invest in anything where I can responsibly drive growth. And Metasearch plays a really important part in this. At the same time, what we also see, and if you look at some of the methods that Metasearch companies have built their businesses with, and Trivago is a good example with a lot of brand advertising. I think that has also inspired us to dig a little bit harder in that segment, and I think this is where we've both invested a lot in the past, let's say 2 years, and also have started to invest more. And at the same time, that we're fairly rational in how we invest. So it's always a trade-off between what is the current return that you get from spending an advertising dollar in a Meta platform or on Google search or wherever, versus what is the future value of the customers that you attract. And you kind of want to make the right trade-off where you both maximize short-term growth, short-term profit, and long-term growth, long-term profit. And in that sense, we're still fairly rational. So I don't think it's about Trivago at all. But certainly we've been making changes in our marketing spend approach, and we do so all the time. That's never been different.
Right. But it's not just about dollars and cents, right? Isn't it also about, I think your CEO, Glenn Fogel, had said that you didn't want to spend so much money with competitors. Trivago is, it's a friend and a competitor.
Yeah. So I think the travel industry is a competition market anyway, right? Everybody needs each other, and everybody would love to be completely on their own and independent, but that's just not possible. At the same time, as a marketeer, we spend billions of dollars every year on marketing, and I would love the ability to spend that money on
4.1 billion last year on performance-based advertising.
Exactly. Thank you for pointing that out. And what's interesting there is that I can give that money to Google, I can give it to Bing, I can give it to all the search engine advertisers or to Trivago, TripAdvisor, whomever. But I'd love to be able to actually give that value to customers. So, and this is a segue, I think, into becoming more of a platform where you can discover and book anything you would want to do in destinations around the world, is also a means for us, driven, by the way, by the mobile device, because this is the discovery device that everybody has in their pocket, that allows us to start focusing on offering ancillary services and basically be more relevant with consumers more often, on the hypothesis that in the end this will drive loyalty and build a larger direct brand.
So on that topic of becoming more full service, last week you acquired FareHarbor.
Yes.
As a way of acquiring some technology to help you in the tourism and activities segment. or as they call it nowadays, experiences, a term I hate.
That's cool. No problem.
So what does that really do to you? For you?
So what's interesting if you look at this experiences space, sorry to use the word, what you see there is that from a technology standpoint, this is a very immature segment still. So let's take the really, any destination has got their top venues that every tourist and everyone wants to go to. It can be on the museum Insel here in Berlin. If you go to Amsterdam, it's the Rijksmuseum. In Frank's house. If you go to Paris, it's the Louvre. So every city has their kind of flagship events, their flagship things that you want to do or experience. At the same time, there's also a mid and a long tail. And what you see is that the use of technology in the mid and long tail is very much not there. So a lot of pen and paper businesses, as a result, a lot of interaction and friction, if you will, between travelers that, for instance, want to book a Berlin city bike tour, and knowing where the pickup point is, knowing at what time slot there is availability, arranging payments, all these things actually are kind of a nightmare to do. And we think that with this technology from Fair Harbor, we have a really well-functioning platform that essentially already brought 5,000 attractions or tour and activities providers in the US onto a single platform with a really good technology. And we were quite impressed by both the team, the culture, and the technology that they've built. So we're very happy that they're now part of the Booking.com family. And we will aim to basically offer their technology to any kind of activities provider globally.
Are you going to give it away like TripAdvisor is doing with their new acquisition? So they're charging next to nothing for,
Yeah, so it's interesting. The Fair Harbor is a commission-based service. So essentially they're not charging any upfront fees. They're charging a piece of the direct business that the attraction gets. Mm-hmm. So the incentives are perfectly aligned between the experience provider and Fair Harbor. And we really like that model as well. So I don't think we'll make any changes there, but who knows, we'll see.
So you're CMO, you're all about making relevant offers to customers.
Yes.
You don't want to bombard them with crap.
Yes, I agree.
So right now you're offering experiences or tours and activities in about 40 cities, something like that. And you're only doing it after somebody's booked a stay.
Yes.
So do you intend to, better compete with the overall sector by offering it on a standalone basis, or how do you look at that?
Yeah, certainly. So our vision, we're on a mission to empower people to experience the world, and our vision is that anything you would want to do, you can book it on our platform. So that should be independent of whether you have booked accommodation or not. So certainly we will test with this. I think probably this quarter already, and we will start doing it. The reason why we start out innovating mostly using the existing accommodation booking audience is because it's just easier from the demand side. Right. We can really learn, hey, how can we create a frictionless experience? What is exactly the real value creation that we can do here? Do we have a right to play? Because there are certain segments maybe where there's really no friction and no value add from a platform like Booking.com. And I think for attractions and things to do, we've really discovered what the right product market fit is. So this is one of the segments that we're putting a lot more effort and investment behind this year. It still will be relatively small compared, of course, to our accommodation business that we've been investing for 20 years in.
Right. Well, if you really wanted to scale up, why didn't you just buy Get Your Guide? I mean, they raised $170 million, so that might not be a cheap acquisition, but wouldn't that be the way to go? Yeah,
so we actually struggled a lot. Of course we look at many of the existing companies in the domains that we want to be that we want to explore. But what we typically find is that we don't really like the way how these companies create value for consumers, and we think that there are better ways to do so. So
what about it don't you like?
Yeah, so I find it hard to start commenting on a public stage about competitors. But one example that I can give you is that what we really aim to do is, and as a marketeer we need to do this, but as a business we need to do this because we are service providers. We need to provide every customer, every prospect, every consumer around the world with the right content, the right moment, right channel at the right price. And doing this requires us to think fundamentally different from how we create value. Simple example, Get Your Guide will probably need to make immediate returns on offering an attraction, let's say a museum ticket here in Berlin, whereas we can make it part of an integrated experience and might have completely different incentives. So, and all the technology of Get Your Guide is built towards this way of monetizing the audience, whereas maybe that might not fit at all the way we want to integrate it into the trip experience.
So you want to make the right offer at the right time to your customers.
Yes.
You announced recently that you now have I think it's 5.1 million short-term accommodation listings, larger than Airbnb's by a breadth.
Yes.
So now here we have Booking.com, which grew up on hotels. You've had apartments and condos and stuff like that for a while, but you're really going big in it. I'm seeing, I go to Booking.com and it's asking me, do I want to list my apartment? Which, by the way, is not a very relevant offer since I don't have an apartment. But anyway, is there, is there a chance, and in your marketing, is this just going to lead to a lot of confusion among customers? Like you have sites like Hotel Tonight that are curating offers, discounted offers and stuff like that, but you're offering the kitchen sink. So how does that work, and how does that complicate your job?
Yeah. So I'd actually argue it makes my job easier, because the thing is, what we predominantly find is that Booking.com is a platform where you can find, in a very easy way, the perfect place to stay. And the type of demand that comes to our platform typically is not sold on a specific property type per se. Like when you book your travels to Paris, you're not going in with the mindset of, I need someone's house. You typically go in, I need a great place with a great location that has the amenities and the size and the decor that I'm looking for. And certainly if you are traveling with kids, for instance, then people's houses are actually really convenient because they tend to be larger, they tend to have different bedrooms, but still in one place, so you don't have your kids wandering around in the middle of the night in the hotel lobby. So as you go onto the platform, you're looking for the best place to stay, and then in your discovery, you either find that it's a boutique hotel, or it's a flagship hotel, or it's a city apartment, or it's someone's house that caters best to your needs. So in that sense, we think it's actually complementary to both what we offer on a destination level, as also to the value that we create for consumers. That's one. The second part, it might be a surprise that we have this, 5-point-something million listings and slightly larger than Airbnb. But don't forget, like years ago when I was running the supply side of Booking.com, we started investing heavily in what we called the non-hotel segment. Because born out of Europe, what you see, Italy is the best example probably, is a country where actually, let's say, standardized hotel or commoditized hotel offerings aren't really that big. So it was already a necessity 10 years ago to go into B&Bs and guest houses and apartments and all these things. So we've been investing in the supporting technology already for now well over 7-8 years. And I think that has helped us to kind of organically already build position globally in offering this type of properties.
I see that you're starting to do TV advertising, including alternative accommodations, and the tagline is, "We guarantee the best price on all kinds of accommodations." So still color me skeptical about this making your job easier. Are you going to start doing digital marketing for apartments?
Yeah, so we already do that. With every new property type, every new property we add to a destination, we will increase the amount of keywords, for instance, that we buy in search engine environments. It will increase the amount of listings we put forward in meta channels. It will increase basically the amount of display or email that we create. So in that sense, they're just part of, let's say, our offering, like any other property. Similarly, if we talk about the US specifically, because the creative that you mentioned is a US specific creative, Booking.com is a little bit less known in the US for what we have to offer. Still, the largest incumbent there, Expedia, that has the largest, let's say, brand awareness and also has educated the market as to what an OTA actually is, meaning a full service flight and car and hotel. So customers expect this. So we need to explain a little bit more what Booking.com's value exactly is, and this is an example of that.
By the way, Airbnb said this morning that OTAs are commodity businesses, but they're a community-minded, people-driven business.
Yeah, it's funny. So I don't think we're commodity-driven. We're certainly utility-driven. So I think the one mistake Airbnb might be making is that they think they are very much about the experience, but it's actually still utility. How do people discover those things they want to do, or discover those places where they want to stay? And that's, I think, very different in our cultures, obviously. And I think actually a benefit to us, because I don't really think that people would want to spend $30 more on the same property simply to be telling your friends like, I booked with Booking, right? So we're not a let's say an aspirational brand. We're a very functional service. We get the job done quickest with the best value.
So they have an advantage in that way, in terms of they are an aspirational brand.
So if brand marketing were the only avenue towards sourcing new demand, then I'd argue yes. And luckily in this world, there's a lot of other ways how to source demand to your platform. So I don't know if that is true.
Right.
It certainly helped them, by the way. I mean, it's a fantastic company with a great mission, great vision, great culture, and great brand promise.
Right.
Like, kudos to that team, how they've done everything.
So they have a marketing campaign of their own recently. They announced with great fanfare that they're going to be trying to onboard boutique hotels and bed and breakfasts, and they only charge a 3% commission, and you're out there with 15% or 20% or God knows what. Is it over for Booking.com?
Yeah, exactly.
You laughed at that one.
Yeah,
huh?
exactly. Thanks for asking. So, just so full disclosure, our average commission globally is 15%. And what's interesting is looking at Airbnb, full disclosure, we believe their commission is 15% as well. It's just charged differently. So 3% to the accommodation owner, and then 6 to 9% to the booker, which in translates to anywhere from 12 to 15%. So in that sense, we're kind of equally, expensive, if you will, just to kind of get that hoax out of the market.
That hoax out of the way. Did you hear that, everybody?
And that's all I can say about it.
Note to Skift editors, he called it a hoax. Okay.
I did. It is one.
I mean, there's a lot of resentment. There's a lot of hoteliers in the room.
Yes.
There's a lot of resentment about Booking.com and Expedia. Their commissions are probably higher. Airbnb is only going after a certain segment of the market, but 3%, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, again, it's in the end, it's about, and I think that's important. Booking.com is also very much a company that focuses on consumers. It's about what consumers pay, and again, in the end, consumers pay a lot more than the 3%. So therefore, of whatever your property rate is out there, let's say it's 100, you're still getting only 85, whether it's on Airbnb or Booking.com. So either way, customer pays the same. Either way, you earn the same in your bank. So again, that's why I think it's a hoax. But when looking at what Airbnb is doing, so again, travel industry is, as I mentioned, a competition market. Certainly, I think that any property owner around the world should use Booking.com as a customer acquisition channel, and then try to do everything to make that customer become loyal. Direct, because if you achieve it at both, then you have a very profitable business and a very fast-growing business. And I think that's no different from what we are trying to achieve, because also our dependency on Google, of course, is very large. And I think that people, like any businessman, should be very rational about how you acquire customers on one hand and how you make them loyal on the other hand. I believe Booking.com is the most efficient, meaning cheapest, most efficient channel globally where you can acquire customers at scale. And I challenge anyone to call me out after this session to prove otherwise. Again, at scale, and for acquiring new customers, and that's, I think, great. Similarly, for us, Google is the most efficient and largest source of new demand, and that's been fantastic, and has really helped us build the business.
Speaking of Google, I noticed that you actually know Rob Torres. You met in the green room. It wasn't your first meeting.
No.
You're probably Google's largest customer in travel, or maybe even out of travel. So how has your relationship with Google changed over the years? So now we have Google getting, very big in hotels. You play in that marketplace, but you also compete, not just like Trivago, but something, it's a co-opetition market.
Exactly.
So how are things going with Google, and how is your relationship changing?
Yeah, so the things are really good with Google still. We collaborate a lot. We collaborate a lot on technology on the search side. We collaborate a lot on the technology for ad serving and ad distribution side. So in DoubleClick, we collaborate a lot around YouTube. Literally any kind of Google asset, we collaborate a lot with them. And this has really helped also to drive innovations. I'll give a simple example. The Google product Dynamic Search Ads is essentially a product that if you don't serve keywords to Google, but your content actually would be relevant, you could decide as an advertiser to let Google advertise on your behalf. And this is a product we co-developed years ago because we wanted to scale keywords wherever there was relevance, because we wanted to drive growth. And as a result, we kind of co-created this product. And I think that's the quality of the relationship we have with Google. That's also the quality of relationship we're seeking with anyone, right, in the marketing space.
It's time for questions.
Very good.
Combining experiences and accommodation and potential other services Could you get a tour operator status? Is this a goal?
I would say it's not a goal. If it happens, it depends very much, I think, on the legal environment and the country within which we operate. So it could happen maybe in certain countries. We will see in the future, but it's certainly not a goal in itself.
Okay. Rate parity is being challenged in many markets, particularly in Europe. How will Booking deal with the absence of rate parity?
Yeah, obviously, it's very important for customers to deliver on the promise of having the best prices always. And rate parity, take Germany as an example. Rate parity clauses have essentially been banned out of the market. What we see, though, is that I don't think hotels are in competition with Booking.com when it comes to prices. What hotels really are in competition with is other hotels. So if you put a really high rate on Booking.com and a lower rate on your own, let's say, brand.com site, consumers have sort of an intuitive sense of what is the right pricing when they go through a listing of different properties. So if they recognize a really high price, the chance that they'll pivot to another property is a lot higher than the chance that they will actually think, maybe there's a better rate direct, because that's also a lot of work. It's a lot of work, particularly also when you think about international travel where people don't speak the language. If you think about the mobile device, where mobile optimized websites and the travel industry have a bit of a struggle with each other. So I think it's really naive to think that one can trick consumers that way and still have sort of a cheap ticket into the same demand as you would otherwise get. Because in the marketplace, it's, as someone else mentioned on this platform, it's very transparent anyway. So I think still the best way to do is optimize your pricing also to acquire demand on Booking.com and then make them loyal. That's really the only two, I think, sane options you have.
And you say that hotels don't compete against Booking.com, but this brings up our next question. I think there's some doubters out there.
Yeah.
How do you look at the major global direct booking campaigns from the hotels versus OTAs? What does that say about OTAs?
Well, it does signal something, of course, about the desire from hotel operators to build direct business. And I think that's exactly also what everyone should do, right? Like we are also trying to build a direct business. So in that sense, I think it's really business as usual. At the same time, again, online is really about customer experience. Online is really about customer journeys and understanding those really, really well. I think it's very questionable in many parts of the world, maybe in some less so. Take the US, for instance, which is very, let's say, big brand dominant. But in all other parts of the business, that dominance is not really there. And therefore, customers just want to discover the best place to stay. And in that discovery path, they are doing this more and more on mobile. More than half of our bookings are happening on mobile. So that basically means that experience needs to be super frictionless, because otherwise we've got a million other things to do on the device. Like just go back to Facebook, go back to Instagram, go back to WhatsApp, has a message, see an email, like do all these things. Literally, our brains don't want to be bothered that much with friction and just lots of researching and discovering. So I don't know if it's a really viable strategy.
Speaking of friction, we just ran out of time. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.